Woo! Good morning, beautiful people. Welcome to the second hour of Love, Babs, Love Talk. I'm Babs Rose-Ivy. That's Matt Taylor, CEO and founder of the Noble Story Group. Hey,
Good
Matt Taylor.
morning.
Nice
Hello.
to see you.
It's so great to see you. It's been way too long.
Oh my gosh. First of all, how's everybody doing at your house?
Phoenix, August, and Myra all said hello. It's spring. It's getting warm. People are doing pretty well.
It's
Doing
not getting
pretty
warm
well.
in Connecticut. I'll tell you that. It's still
Yeah,
pretty cold.
right. I'm sure. I miss
So
a
you,
lot of things about New Haven, but
well, you're welcome to come back. We'll let you
I
in.
every day, every day.
So listen, Matt used to be the principal over at Amistad, I believe. That's how I know you, I think,
Hmm.
through that time. And from Church of the Redeemer, our church, and your family, I knew that. But you've been coaching and training education and nonprofit leaders for the last 15 years, from CEOs to school principals. And so you have this 5 square methodology that you use as an anchor leadership development tool in nonprofit organizations. And you have a new book out,
I
which I
do.
am delighted to talk about because it's your first attempt at a book.
That's right.
And how
That
does
is.
it feel? Noble
Dream
School
come true.
Leader, the 5 square approach to leading schools with emotional intelligence.
That's right.
All right.
It is thrilling. It feels like a dream come true to have written it. I am excited and nervous to talk about it.
Why?
Beth,
Why are you nervous? Why
you're
are you
the
nervous?
first
This is
time
your
I'm
life's
on.
work.
It is true, but I'm putting my life's work out in front of everybody on a radio show. So you're the first person I'm talking to about the book, so I'm thrilled and nervous.
Wow. All right. So you work in education, you work with nonprofits, you work with educational leaders. What was it that said, you know what? I think folks need a book. I need to put this down in a book so people can walk with it, talk with it, and dream and live with it. What was that like?
Babs, I've been doing this work, and in every single school I work in, no matter what kind of school it is, it's the same challenges, and a lot of those challenges are emotional, and schools are great at building the technical instructional skills of leaders and teachers. We are not so great at building the emotional skills of teaching and leading. And actually, we've been trending towards a technical approach to that over time, and it's about achievement. It's about academic achievement, which really pushes schools to make teachers and leaders as good as they can at instruction. But we sometimes forget the emotional side. The conditions for learning are largely emotional. That's true for kids and adults. And so, my work, I just kept seeing the same thing over and over. People need support building the emotional conditions for learning, and teachers and leaders need support building the leadership competencies to make that happen. And so I was coaching and doing this one-on-one or doing it with groups. And what I was doing just became clearer and clearer in terms of a deliverable. And I realized I can put this in a book, and people can do this as a self-guided experience, and I could impact a whole bunch more schools and kids and leaders and teachers. So
So
that's why I wrote it.
so unpack emotional support for me. What Give me an example of what that looks like and what that means.
Sure. Now I'll start with this. Emotional conditions for learning. Think about the best learning experience you've ever had.
Ooh.
Imagine that teacher, right? What did they do to help you to learn like that? And if you think about it, it it may be partly about what they were putting on the board, but it's largely about how they made you feel,
Yes.
right? And what you
Yes.
believe and what you believe they believed about you, and what they believed you
Yes.
were capable of, and how they communicated that to you, not just in words but in behavior. And so that's what I'm talking about. You're a student who goes in, you've had your life experience. Maybe you love school. Maybe school is a place that feels dangerous to you because of the experiences you've had. It is up to that educator in front of you to make it safe for you to take risks, right? For you to take the emotional risk to learn, because you could try to learn something and you could fail, right? And then failure is a perception, right? You could try to learn something and you could struggle. That teacher's either going to make you feel energized about that, or they're going to make you feel unsafe about that.
Mm.
And that's where emotional intelligence comes in. The ability of a teacher to create the conditions for you to feel energized by struggle. Because learning, another word for growth mindset, is about seeing challenges as opportunities to grow. So that's the emotional conditions I'm talking about. And teachers create that, but you know what? Teachers can't create that if they don't feel it themselves. And that's where the leader comes in. The leader needs to create the conditions for the teacher to feel like a learner. Because one of the big ideas of emotional intelligence that really blew me away is that emotions are contagious.
Yes.
There's scientific proof. There are these things called mirror neurons that when you and I are in the same room, our mirror neurons start dancing together. And the leaders' mirror neurons are more powerful, just like the teachers are. And all that means that you can't go in and fake it, right? If I don't believe in you and I'm trying to teach you, you know it at a deep
Mm-hmm.
level, and I can't fake that. And so that's emotionally intelligent competencies are about being self-aware of how I feel, and how and my stories, and how those stories impact you, and my ability to self-manage, to be in the right emotional place to create the conditions for you.
Mm. So you know what, Matt, when we look at teachers now, we hear so many stories about teacher burnout. We hear
Mm-hmm.
so many stories about teachers not feeling supported. We're hearing so many stories of teachers leaving the profession
Mm-hmm.
because they feel disconnected, they don't feel respected, they don't feel heard. Is that something that that leadership could educational leadership could tackle as a part of the emotional conversation?
Absolutely. I think it is a national crisis, Baz. I don't know what schools are going to look like in 10 years, given the exodus we're seeing, not just of teachers, but school leaders leaving in droves. And it really is, of course, it's about the pandemic, but it's about the politics of education, the culture wars, and it's about the conditions for learning we create for adults in schools too. And actually, my book talks a lot about that. Um, Burnout, sustainability. How can we create conditions for people to sustain in roles? And that's partly about me internally and my own habits and stories, but it's also about the culture I'm working in, and the culture we collectively, like, what the invisible culture and expectations of that, as much as it's about the structures and systems of the school or organization itself. And it's something that can absolutely be tackled if we focus on it the right way.
Mm. I mean, I'm with you. I'm concerned about what school will look like, not even in 10 years, but in the next couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm seeing contentious board of educations. I'm seeing politics at the superintendent level. How are teachers supposed to come to this profession feeling that they're needed and wanted and respected? how do we get there? Like, how do
Mm,
we stop the drain of folks not coming to this profession?
no, there are so many factors, right? And what we're paying teachers is a factor. How society sees teachers and how they're treated is a factor. So there's all sorts of external things, but my work focuses on inside the building itself. What does it feel like to come to work every day? What is it, how am I treated? How am I seen by my leaders and my students? And there's a lot we can do to shift that experience of being an educator. And that's leaders have a lot of advocacy there, but it also depends on what's going up and down a district, because of course principals are facing what's coming from their managers and from the central office. But I think to your question, a big part of a school leader's role right now is to protect their people from the onslaught of all of the things that are coming down on them. And it's the job of the principal's manager to protect the principal all up and down that system.
So when you started your career, well, let me back up. What made you decide on a career in education? What was it that said, you know what? I feel a ministerial call to this profession. I want to be a teacher. And then when you're a teacher, how did you know you wanted to be the principal?
It's funny you use the word ministry. I was in college and very focused on social justice and how am I going to make the world a better place. And I live in DC now. I did an internship in DC, and because I thought, well, maybe it's government or politics. And I left that. I'm like, nope, never. That is not where I want to be. It was an awful experience. And in the meantime, I was taking classes in college about education. And so I decided that was it. I want to go the education route. I had the amazing experience of being able to shadow a superintendent in my hometown of Springfield, Illinois, and see what he did and see how he could impact individual people in schools. And so I was real turned on by that. And so I became a teacher. I worked actually my first job was in Mexico. I was a teacher in Morelia, Mexico for a year. And then I was a teacher in Chicago. And then I was a teacher in Boston. And I've taught in lots of cities and lots of different kinds of schools. And at some point I decided, I could have more impact on kids if I could be in charge of the whole building and creating not just my classroom culture, but a culture in the building that supported learning. For me, it's always been about that emotional side and creating that culture. And so that's how I got into principal work in New Haven. It's largely a New Haven story. And then I had the opportunity to start a program to train and coach future principals. And that's really what led me to the work I'm doing now.
And so when you train and coach principals, what is their greatest challenge? What do you hear often about what they imagine their job to be and what they actually do?
It's funny you say that, because the quote I always share with the leaders when I start working with them is what I keep hearing over and over from people who go from like an assistant principal position to a principal. And they come back about 3 weeks in and they say, why didn't anyone tell me this job is only 5% about teaching math and reading, and it's 95% about taking care of people's emotional needs, especially adults. And so that's what they aren't prepared for.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you come in and you sort of help them maneuver those waters. Do you help them understand and maybe, I don't know if remedy is the right word, but sort of work through?
Yes, I don't think remedy is the right word, because what people come to understand is this is the work. Okay. People's emotional needs are the work of school leadership. And And effective and successful principals get to a point where they not like accept that, but get energized better. And so that's what I try to help people do. See that educational leadership is largely emotional work. And there are competencies that we have that we can build to make us good at that. And so, like what emotional intelligence really is four things: self-awareness. What are my core values that ground me and are my compass? And what is the stuff that gets in my way? My own self-limiting stories about me and other people and my behaviors that get in my way. That's self-awareness. And then self-management is based on my core values, my power, and the things that get in my way. What do I want to leverage inside of myself, and what do I need to manage so it doesn't get in my way? And people, like, I work a lot with leaders just on that internal stuff before we shift to, okay, let's think about all the people, all the kids, all the parents, all the teachers. And then I help them in my coaching in the book. I help them think about, like, where are these people? Like, not just, what we can see, but below the surface. What's going on with them? What do they care about? What are they afraid of? What are their emotions? What are their loyalties? And how do they all come into play as I try to do, move them, teach them, move them in a direction altogether. So I help build the muscle of basically emotional understanding, being able to diagnose where people are, because if you don't know where people are, you can't get them to where you want them to be or where they need to be. So social awareness is about understanding where people are and what they need from you to get them somewhere. And then the last idea of emotional intelligence is relationship management. Once I'm managing myself and I'm really understand where you are, then I can pick the right approach to engaging with you to get you what you need or to get us where we need to go. And so I use those four dimensions in the coaching, and I help kind of build a mental schema for leaders of how to approach any difficult emotional situation in the school. And we just work those four dimensions over and over, and it becomes ingrained, and it's the way that they see things.
I like that. I particularly like the last one that you talked about, where it sounds like to me you meet teachers where they are instead of like some blanket some blanket edict about how we're going to do this, but that you individualize conversations, the working relationships with teachers. That's what I'm hearing.
With everybody. Really, I mean, this isn't just a school leader thing. This is a human thing, right? If we are taking the time to connect and be aware of where somebody is, we're much more likely to be to influence them or to get where we need to go with them, right? And so we can have I'm totally up for systems and policies in school. We absolutely need them. But when we get to a level where there's resistance or where there's an obstacle with somebody, we need to understand where they are individually if we're going to be able to move through that.
So, it sounds like too, like this work can't be in isolation, but that there's a community component that needs some re-education about emotional education too. Like, how do you prepare community, or at least get them to understand that there is some emotional language, so that somebody could do that work somewhere, but at least whatever a way to support teachers in this work, that the community itself has to have some awareness of what
Yes,
this is.
you are absolutely right. This works best when I can go into a district or a school organization and build a common language, because that's really what we're talking about, a common language to understand what's going on around us. And if we speak the same language, we're building a culture around leadership, right? When we don't have that language, we can't build the culture. A lot of when I learned about emotional intelligence, I'm reading the books about it, and like, oh yeah, of course, That's intuitive. I know that. I just didn't have the words for it. And that's true, I think, for anyone who studies emotional intelligence. We all intuitively get a lot of it, but we don't have the language. And I find that once people can speak that language together, they're having a whole different level of conversation. And so how do they build a common language? They buy this book.
I love it. I
Right?
love it. I love
That's
it.
one way, right? That's one way to do it, is to, like, we read something together, we talk about it together, and we deliberately bring it into hard conversations together, and use the ideas to help us through.
Mhm. So, what was the best part of writing this book? What was the best part, and what was the hardest part?
Hmm. Well, fortunately, I like to write. So for me, I love getting up and having that 2 hours early in the morning before my work day to wrestle with it. And it was all the ideas for my work. So it was fun to get what was in my head out onto paper. Um, I gotta say, one of the most fun parts is this conversation right now. Like, having it in the world, talking to someone about it, that is such a thrill.
I
The
love
best
it.
part will be if people read it and it has impact on
Oh, I'm
schools.
sure it will have impact. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure it will have great impact on people. So, you couldn't fit everything in the book.
No.
What? How did you decide? Okay, this stays. This. I mean, I know you have a good editorial team that says, you know what, Matt,
Yeah.
no, this, that, and the other thing.
Hmm.
But how did you in your heart and soul say, I have to make sure this is in the book because this is critically important?
Hmm.
And how do you edit that? How do you
Yeah.
not do, or do you save it for the next book?
I wanted to write to coach. This book is my love letter to leaders. But I wanted to talk to coaches too, but it wasn't the right place. I had to just stay with the leaders and not talk to their coaches about how to coach them on these things. And so that was a whole part that was hard to leave out. Um, so maybe another book. I had a chapter, and I think it's probably one of the most important chapters, on diversity, equity, inclusion, that I did not put in the book at the end. And actually, it was a chapter that I wrote with a colleague, and we decided this is too important to be a chapter. You can't just make one chapter in this book about this. And so that's probably the next book, is how do we look at issues of equity and inclusion through the lens of emotional intelligence? That is woven throughout the book.
Mhm.
That's what we realized. We can't put that in a chapter by itself. Um, so that's probably going to be one of the. I've got some other books I want to write, and that's one of them that I will write with some friends.
Now, everybody is talking about equity and inclusion. Like,
Hmm.
the institutions of higher education are actually dedicating staff and folks to equity and inclusion at that level. What are
Right.
we doing at the lower grade levels, like, elementary and high school level? Is there room for equity and inclusion kinds of conversations and staff? Like, I don't know.
Absolutely. How can we not, when we are diverse groups of adults trying to teach diverse groups of kids? How can we create the kind of spaces for learning that have to have relationship and trust if we're not talking about people's identities and if we're not bringing those in? And so I think it's deeply important, and interrogating our cultures, right, for cultural norms and who's included and where the power is. I think those are all very important conversations. And there are conversations that require emotional intelligence. They require the ability for us to be able to have uncomfortable conversations and remain connected to each other. And that, in a nutshell, is what the outcome is that we're trying to get to with this work. Being
Mm.
able to challenge each other and stay connected, or even build connection.
So tell me what the biggest dream is for this work, this path that you're on. Like,
Mm.
what is the biggest dream? Like, what do you want to see happen in the world around emotional education tools, emotional education expansion? What is the biggest dream?
So what I kind of understand pretty deeply is kids cannot do their social emotional learning if adults are not doing theirs, because emotions are contagious, and Kids do what they see us doing, not what we tell them to do, right? Um, so my dream is that from the top down, I leaders will start to lead with social emotional leadership and model that and walk the walk and teach those that they lead how to do that, and those will teach them the folks that they lead. And so it comes down to every adult in a school building working on their own social emotional learning, working on their own emotional intelligence competencies. That then connects to the social emotional learning we're doing with kids, so that everybody in the school community is working on their competencies of social emotional learning and creating and feel responsible for creating those conditions for learning. So imagine a school where the kids from kindergarten to 12th grade are having conversations with adults about what they're all working on in their own lives. So that kindergartner can hear their teacher say, yeah, I'm working on my imposter syndrome. And here's what I'm doing about it, right? Or I'm working on my self-care. And here are my strategies. Imagine that's when you have a real learning community.
Wow. And so are you going on tour, and who should be reading this book? Who do you want to read this book? Like I'm a parent. My kids are grown and out the house. But I sit on a school board. I chair the Common Ground school board. And I would love to see this book get in front of everybody. So who is this book for? Can a lay person read this book?
Absolutely. My mom's been reading this book and she tells me it's having an impact on her. I wrote it for school leaders because that's the world I work in. But honestly, this is about being a human being. This is about being an effective human being in the world. And so I hope to write another version for everybody. But really, if you take out the word school leader, this applies to everybody as well. I would love to see a school community, a school leadership team read this together and maybe have a book group together on it and build that common language, right? I would love to see a district senior leader team take this book on and do the same thing and start working on themselves and advertise to everyone they lead that they're doing that. They're working on themselves. They're working on their leadership like this, so that it becomes something that seeps through.
Do you want people to call you? Do you want people to get in touch with you to come and lead this kind of stuff?
I would welcome that, especially in New Haven. That'll be my first book tour stop, New Haven, Connecticut.
So how do people find you, Matt Taylor? What's the call out? The website or the
right.
email?
The website is noblestorygroup.com. And you can find an info email there. Yes, please reach out. Would love to talk to, district leaders and school leaders and teacher leaders, and about the book and about all the coaching and training that we do.
I enjoyed this conversation, Matt Taylor. So good to see you. Say hi to everybody at your house. Myra, August, Phoenix. Are they in the house? Are they all grown up? Where are they? Are they in college? Oh Lord, please don't tell me.
In an apartment down the street. Myra's somewhere out there doing some work. August is a sophomore high school in the school play. We're almost at empty nest over here, Beth.
I know what you're gonna do.
I have some ideas.
I knew I liked you. So that's what I tell people. Have a plan, because if you don't have a plan, you're going to be sitting around trying to figure out, oh my God, I don't have to get anybody to soccer. I don't have to get anybody to music lessons. No. So find something to do with that time.
There's a lot of opportunities.
Thank you, Matt Taylor. I so appreciate this conversation.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
I can't wait to see you come back to New Haven and bring your book with you.
Oh, shout out to all the people that I love in New Haven today. I feel like I'm coming home this morning, and I can't wait to come there in person. And give hugs and talk about the book and everything else and catch up. I think that it will happen, because people were very excited about you coming on this morning. So thanks, Babs.
Thank you. Take good care.
You too.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap. It was so good to talk to Matt Taylor. I'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. And of course, I talk to the most interesting people around. I'll see y'all. Harry, play us out.
I'm not a fool. I'm not a fool. This could be. This could be. It could be about us. This could be all about us. Yeah. But it ain't gonna be about us, baby. I'm gonna write this song. Sing about how you did me wrong. Woo. About us. All about us. This song could be about us, but it's not.
This is my friend Kevin Maloney. Kevin had put this together. I've got a little red rooster, too lazy to crow for day. I've got a little red rooster, too lazy to crow for day. Keeps everything in the barnyard upset each and every man. Those dogs begin to bark, hounds begin to howl. Those dogs begin to bark, hounds begin to howl. Look out, all you stray cat people, little red rooster's on the ground. So if you see my red rooster, won't you send him home? If you see my rooster, won't you send him home? Ain't been no peace in the barnyard since my rooster been gone. You know those dogs begin to bark, hounds